everybody, Alan Arnett here with another podcast on the blog on alanarnett.com. It is Monday, April the 27th, 2026, and this is your one-day delayed weekend update of Everest 2026. Well, the reason I didn't do one yesterday on Sunday like I have been doing was that I wanted to wait and see what the results of teams going up the ice fall today, Monday in Nepal, is currently about almost 11 o'clock in Nepal on Monday the 27th. And to check out that Serac is hanging. So let's back up just a second and let's recap because this situation has now become worldwide news. And for the most part, the mainstream media is getting it right for a change. So really glad to see that. But we're getting conflicting information coming out of base camp. So I contacted Mike Hamill, Ryan Waters, Garrett Madison, and a few other Nepali operators to ask them exactly what was going on. And I think I've got the solid answer at this point. And the answer is that the ice fall itself is passable. That's not the problem. In fact, a team from Imagine Nepal, along with a Polish climber, they went up on Saturday and they were able to find a route through what had been considered a blockage at the top of the ice fall proper. They went all the way almost to Camp One. And so they really think that that route can be put in with ropes and ladders. And so now the icefall doctors are supposed to go up tomorrow, Tuesday, and investigate that and make their own decision. However, another team of 20 people went up today, Monday, and they took a look around and they said, yeah, well, maybe we can get the route through, but the hanging Serac to the climber's left as you're going up the icefall on Everest's west shoulder, the same area that collapsed in 2014, killing 16 Sherpas, there is a one individual Serac, which is kind of dangling up there. And it's in the gap between the wall of the mountain and the angle of the ice block has gotten wider. It's gone from about 3 feet to 8 feet. So that means that it's leaning. So that's actually good news because it could fall at any time. However, any time could be tomorrow, it could be tonight, it could be July, and you just don't know. Also, there was a lot of rockfall that was observed by one team, but not by the other team. So, what's the truth? I think this is a situation where we could have many things all be right at the same time. The ice fall is passable. The Serac is probably going to fall at some point. That's almost a guarantee. Rockfall is a constant. Now, and rockfall is random, so sometimes you're going to be there and it's going to come down. Other times it's not. So both those reports could absolutely be true. So what they're going to do is just wait a little bit. The icefall doctors, like I said, are going to go up and see if they can't investigate putting the top of the icefall in. In other words, the ladders and the ropes all the way to Camp One. But if they get up there and they feel like either the Serac is too perilous for them or the rockfall is too dangerous, they're going to call it, and they're not going to continue to work until the situation stabilizes. So here we are, April 27th, and now it comes something about strategy. So let's take a look at this. Before I get there, let me just briefly say I've got on my blog post all the way back to 2009 of when the ice fall was in. And in general, the ice fall has been in over the last, 15, 16 years between April 2nd and April 16th. So we are currently on 11 days later than the latest on history. So it's going to be a tough year. So this is where the strategy comes into play. That and I've seen this for as long as I've been following ever since 1997. That the Nepali teams, the local teams, the Sherpa-owned teams, they typically, as soon as the ropes get to the summit, they are on the rope fixer's tail, following them up at the mountain, and they try to get all of their clients. So a company like Seven Summits Treks with 100 clients, and 1.5 Sherpa per client, that team alone is what? That's 250 people that'll be going up following the rope fixers. And now you take other companies that have big, large groups like Elite or Imagine Nepal or 8K, they also are going to be doing that. So I expect to see just absolute chaos sometime around mid-May, because I'm if they can get the ropes in and they can get the ropes to the summit, then that's going to give them, 2 weeks roughly, and that's enough time to get the ropes in. So that means the ropes will be to the summit sometime around May 13th to the 15th, maybe a few days earlier, maybe a few days later. And then we'll see a mass chaos as most of the climbers that are still at base camp will go. Then you'll have the foreign operators, people like Adventure Consultants or Fruitenbach or Madison Mountaineering, Mike Hamill climbing the Seven Summits, those type of people. They typically keep their powder dry and they wait till the masses go and then they go up. It typically is the last window of the year. So that would suggest this year sometime between May 22nd and May 26th. So we're going to see two massive waves right after the road fixers and then right before the monsoons come in around June 1st. That's my prediction for how this season is going to play out. But it depends on three major critical things. Number one, can they get the route in at all? Number two, is there enough time left to stock all the camps with food, fuel, tents, and most importantly, oxygen bottles? And then number three, the weather. It's always the wild card. If the monsoon comes in early or the jet stream refuses to move off the summit and you've got winds over 30 to 35 miles an hour, those are not summit days. If people do go up in those conditions, they're going to suffer frostbite or worse. So but we don't know. We can't predict the weather this far in advance, especially when it comes to the jet stream. I'll talk to my buddy Chris Tomer and see what he has to say right now. Maybe Michael Fagan or Mark DeKeyser. These guys are pros, so I'll get their opinion on it before I talk next week. Another thing that's going on the mountain is that Nepal government has traditionally banned using helicopters to fly Sherpas or foreigners to Camp 2 to avoid the ice fall. It's always been felt that, if you're going to go climb Mount Everest on the Nepal side, do it in style, go through the ice fall, take your chances. As a mountain, that's the contract that you make with the mountains. They're dangerous. People know that. So don't use a helicopter. And the Himalayan database actually has a way of dealing with this. If somebody summits and comes down to Camp 2 and flies off on a helicopter, or they fly to Camp 2 and then they summit, they put an asterisk beside your name and call it aviation assisted. Now, did you summit? Again, this is a sport that really has no rules. The Himalayan database is about as close of having a referee as there is in high altitude mountaineering. So really, it falls down to the personal integrity of each individual. And if they don't care if they have an asterisk beside their name, then they don't care. But I think most people don't think it's cricket to take the helicopter up or down. So that makes what the Nepal government has changed the rule this year even more important. They're going to allow 10 helicopters to take up ropes and pitons and ladders and other instruments that will be used to fix the route from Camp 2 to the summit. So that's a big, big, big deal. And you know what? I personally think this may be the opening that a lot of people have been looking for to get the government to go ahead and make it standard that if you want to take a helicopter over the icefall, it's okay with them because of how dangerous the icefall is getting. The last thing Nepal wants is bad publicity. Bad PR means loss of revenue, and that's the number one driver of all of these rules in Nepal for both the operators as well as for the government because of how much money that they bring in, now with the $15,000 per person permit fee. So, this may be the new norm. We'll see how it plays out this year, and then of course how it plays out the following year. So that's really the update. There were a few more summits on some of the other 8,000-meter mountains this past week. Everest is up to 410 permits that have been issued. And by my count, I say there's about 1.5 Sherpas per permit holder. And then you've got a small number of cooks and other staff. So I think there's around 1,200 people at Everest Base Camp. However, I've seen reports that say as much as 3,500. I don't believe that, but I'm not there. They are. So maybe that's right. Okay, that's it for this week. Another short one because there's really not much happening. Most of the teams are just hanging out. Some of them are going back down to Kathmandu, which is a mistake because you're going to get sick. Other ones are going back to Namche, which is a mistake because you're going to get sick. And others are acclimatizing on some peaks like Burunse, Amenablam, um, Lobuche East, Island Peak, and others. And others are just hanging around base camp, just playing cards and talking. And thankfully, they brought 1,400 books on their Kindle, so at least they've got something to do. They are still going, practicing, crossing ladders there on these little obstacle courses they put in, just to kind of keep your skills up. And they're also holding their pujas. So they're all dressed up with nowhere to go, but hopefully that's going to change starting on Tuesday. All right. Again, thanks so much for following, everybody. I really appreciate it when you make a comment. Just be nice. Don't be rude. Okay. Climb on. This is Alan, and remember, memories are everything.
The podcast on AlanArnett.com is sponsored by Summit Coach, helping aspiring climbers worldwide to reach their dreams.